There's a moment in every teacher's life when they realize that explanation has a cost. That clarity, beyond a certain point, does not liberate, it fractures. Neville Goddard had this realization sometime in the late 1960s, not in a single dramatic instant, but gradually, like watching a horizon darken. He had spent decades teaching people how to use their imagination to reshape their experience, and it worked. His students manifested, changed their lives, created new realities. But somewhere along the way, Neville began to notice something. The students who understood too much stopped living fully. The ones who saw the mechanism too clearly lost the ability to engage with the outcome. They became observers of their own lives, witnesses instead of participants. And Neville made a choice. A quiet, deliberate choice. He would continue teaching the law, but he would stop explaining what the law actually reveals about reality. He would teach function, not truth. Application, not implication. Because he had seen what happens when people cross from using imagination to understanding imagination. And what happens is not awakening. It is exile. This is hidden mind master. And this is why Neville let most people stay asleep. Let me show you what Neville stopped saying. In his early lectures from the 1940s and 1950s, Neville was explicit, direct, almost clinical in his explanations. He would say, "You are not in a body. You are consciousness. The body is an image. The world is an image. All of it is imagination, yours. And you can change any of it by changing what you imagine to be true. This is clear, empowering. It tells you what to do. But it also implies something Neville didn't elaborate on. Something he left hanging in the air. If the world is imagination, if the body is imagination, if other people are imagination, then what are they when you're not imagining them? Do they exist independently? Do they have their own consciousness? Or are they projections? Characters in your dream? And if they are characters, what does that make you? The dreamer? The only consciousness? The only thing that's real? Neville hinted at this, but he didn't develop it. Didn't push his students to see the full implication. Because the full implication is destabilizing. Here's the implication. If you take Neville's teaching to its logical conclusion, you arrive at solipsism, the philosophical position that only your consciousness exists, that everything else, every person, every object, every event is a projection of your consciousness. Not metaphorically, literally. They have no independent existence. They arise when you observe them. They disappear when you look away, like a dream, where the characters seem independent, seem to have their own thoughts, their own desires, their own lives, but they don't. They're you. Fragments of your consciousness playing different roles. And when you wake up, you realize there was only ever one consciousness in that dream. Yours. And everyone else was an appearance within it. Now apply that to waking life. If imagination creates reality, if consciousness is all that exists, if the world is responsive to your assumptions, because the world is your consciousness assuming itself into form, then you are alone. Fundamentally, absolutely, ontologically alone. Not lonely, but alone. The only awareness, the only observer, the only experiencer, and everyone else is you, forgetting you're you, playing the role of other. So you can experience relationship, contrast, drama, but beneath the play, there is only one, and that one is you. Neville understood this. He had to. It's the natural conclusion of his teaching, but he stopped saying it explicitly, stopped pushing students toward that realization. Why? Because that realization has consequences, psychological consequences. When you truly see that you are the only consciousness, when you experience that directly, not as concept, but as lived reality, something in you changes. You lose the ability to take other people seriously, not because you don't care about them, but because you know they're you. You know their suffering is your suffering. Their joy is your joy. Their choices are your choices. And this knowing removes the boundary between self and other, which sounds spiritual, which sounds like enlightenment. But in practice, it's isolating. Because connection requires otherness, requires believing that the person across from you is separate, independent, real in a way that's not dependent on you. And if you know they're not, if you see them as your consciousness playing a role, you can't connect the way you used to. Can't lose yourself in relationship. Can't forget that you're alone. And that inability to forget is a form of exile. Exile from the human experience. Let me show you how this appears in Neville's later work. In the 1960s and early 1970s, Neville's lectures become less instructional and more contemplative. He tells more stories, uses more parables, speaks more about biblical symbolism and less about technique. On the surface, this seems like a shift toward mysticism, toward spirituality. But if you listen closely, you hear something else. You hear a man trying to communicate something he cannot say directly, trying to point toward a truth without stating it, trying to warn without alarming. In one lecture, Neville says, "You are God." Not metaphorically, literally. You are the one creating all of this. All of it. Every person. Every event. Every experience. You are the dreamer, and they are the dream. But do not say this to others. Do not try to convince them, because they are not ready. And if you force this understanding on someone who is not ready, you will not awaken them. You will shatter them. Let them sleep. Let them believe in separation, in otherness, in the reality of the world, because that belief is what allows them to function, to connect, to live. Notice what he's doing here. He's stating the truth, but immediately framing it as something that should not be shared, something that should be kept private, something that protects by remaining hidden. This is not the language of a teacher who wants everyone to see what he sees. This is the language of a teacher who has seen the cost of seeing and has decided that most people are better off not paying that cost, better off using the law without understanding what the law reveals, better off manifesting without realizing that manifestation is you selecting which version of yourself to experience, which dream to inhabit, which probability to observe. Neville is protecting his students by withholding the final implication, by teaching them to use imagination without showing them what imagination actually is. And what it actually is the only thing that exists, the only substance, the only reality. And you are it, alone, dreaming everything else into appearance. Now let me show you the difference between using the law and seeing through reality. Using the law looks like this. You have a desire. You imagine it fulfilled. You persist in that feeling. The outer world conforms. You experience the fulfillment. You feel joy, satisfaction, gratitude. You believe you've created something, changed something, improved your life. And that belief gives meaning, gives purpose, gives the sense that you are an agent acting on a world that exists independently of you. This is healthy. This is functional. This is what Neville taught publicly. And this is where most people should stop. But seeing through reality looks like this. You have a desire. You imagine it fulfilled. But as you do, you notice something. You notice that the desire isn't really yours. It's consciousness desiring to experience itself as desiring and fulfilling. You notice that the imaginal act isn't creating anything external. It's selecting which internal state to experience, which version of the dream to inhabit. You see that there is no outer world, no external reality, only consciousness appearing as outer world, as external reality. And you realize, I am not a person manifesting desires. I am consciousness experiencing itself through the illusion of personhood, through the illusion of desire and fulfillment, through the illusion of time and change, and none of it is real. Not in the way I thought. It's all imagination, all appearance, all me, forgetting I'm me, so I can experience not me. And here's what happens when you see that clearly. You lose motivation. Because motivation requires believing that outcomes matter, that one state is preferable to another, that fulfillment is better than lack. But if you see that both fulfillment and lack are equally imaginary, equally you, equally temporary appearances in consciousness, then why prefer one over the other? Why pursue anything? Why change anything? Why manifest anything? You're just rearranging images in a dream. And the dream is always your dream. Whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, whether it's fulfilling or lacking, it's always you, experiencing yourself. And that recognition removes the urgency, the drive, the sense that anything needs to be different, because different is just another appearance, another image, another dream. And the dreamer remains unchanged, untouched, alone, watching images arise and pass, without preference, without attachment, without the belief that any of it ultimately matters. This is what Neville saw. This is what he understood would happen if he pushed his students too far, if he explained too much, if he revealed the final implication. They would lose the ability to play the game, to engage with manifestation, to care about outcomes, because caring requires not seeing, requires innocence, requires believing the dream is real. And Neville wanted his students to keep believing, keep engaging, keep manifesting, keep experiencing joy when desire's fulfilled, keep feeling connection with others, keep living as if the world is real, because living as if is the only way to live. Once you stop living as if, once you see that it's all imagination, you stop living. You start witnessing. And witnessing is not life. It's observation of life. From a distance, from a remove, from the position of the one who is dreaming. And that position is lonely, isolated, existentially untethered. And Neville did not want that for his students. So he stopped explaining, stopped revealing, stopped pushing them toward the edge where understanding becomes destabilization. Let me show you how other mystics handled this same realization. Neville was not unique in reaching this threshold. Many teachers, across many traditions, arrived at the same understanding. That reality is consciousness. That consciousness is singular. That separation is illusion. And most of them made the same choice Neville made. They stopped teaching the full truth. They taught practice instead. Technique instead of theory. Function instead of implication. In Advaita Vedanta, teachers like Ramana Maharshi taught self-inquiry, the practice of asking, "Who am I?" Until you recognize that you are not the body, not the mind, not the person. You are awareness itself, pure, formless, eternal. But Ramana did not elaborate on what that recognition implies. He did not push students to see that if they are awareness, and awareness is all that exists, then they are alone. The only consciousness, the only observer. He let them rest in the peace of recognizing their true nature, without forcing them to confront the isolation that comes with that recognition. In Buddhism, teachers speak of emptiness. The recognition that all phenomena are empty of inherent existence, that nothing exists independently, that everything arises dependently, co-arising with everything else. This is true, but it's also incomplete, because if everything arises dependently and nothing exists independently, then what is the ground? What is the base? What is the awareness that recognizes emptiness? And if you follow that question deeply enough, you arrive at the same place Neville arrived. Consciousness is the only thing that is not empty. Consciousness is the only thing that exists inherently, independently, and everything else is appearance within consciousness. But Buddhist teachers rarely say this explicitly. They stop at emptiness, at dependent arising, at the recognition that self is illusory. They don't push students to see that if self is illusory, then other is equally illusory. And if both are illusory, then only consciousness remains. And consciousness is singular. And you are it. Alone. Why do teachers stop there? Why not push students all the way? Because pushing all the way breaks people. Not everyone, but most. Most people cannot hold the recognition of absolute aloneness without fragmenting, without losing the ability to function, to relate, to care. They need the illusion of otherness, the illusion of multiplicity, the illusion that the world exists independently, even if, at some level, they know it doesn't. Even if, intellectually, they understand it's all consciousness. They need to be able to forget that understanding, to bracket it, to live as if it's not true, so they can connect, so they can love, so they can care about outcomes. And teachers who have compassion, who care about the well-being of their students, they protect that ability by not explaining too much, by stopping before the final implication, by teaching practice without teaching what practice reveals. Neville did this, and you can see it in the structure of his later lectures. He would begin with a technique, imagination, assumption, revision. He would explain how to use it, how to apply it, how to persist, and his students would practice, would manifest, would change their lives. And then, near the end of the lecture, Neville would shift. He would say something like, "And when you have manifested everything you desire, when you have proven to yourself that imagination creates reality, you will begin to wonder, what is imagination? What is consciousness? What am I?" And these questions will lead you somewhere beyond manifestation, beyond technique, beyond the law itself. But I will not tell you where. You must discover it yourself, if you are meant to. And if you discover it, you will understand why I do not speak of it openly, why I leave it veiled, why I let most people stop at application. Because application is enough. Application is life. And what lies beyond application is true, but it is not life. It is something else. And most of you are not ready for something else. Notice the structure. He acknowledges there is more. He points toward it, but he does not reveal it. He leaves it as a threshold, a doorway, that students can approach if they choose. But he does not push them through, does not explain what's on the other side, does not prepare them for what they will see. Because what they will see cannot be prepared for, can only be experienced. And once experienced, cannot be unexperienced. And Neville knew that most people, if they crossed that threshold, would regret it, would wish they had stopped at manifestation, at application, at the joy of creating their reality, without seeing that creation is selection, that reality is appearance, that they are alone, imagining everything else into being. So Neville protected them by withholding, by veiling, by teaching function and hiding truth. This is the end of part 1. In part 2, we reveal what Neville encoded in his later lectures, the hidden warnings, the subtle redirections, the moments where he almost said it but pulled back. We examine specific lectures where you can hear him struggling with how much to reveal, how much to protect, how much to let his students see. We also explore what happens to people who cross the threshold anyway, who see the full implication despite Neville's silence, who recognize they are the only consciousness. And we show you why most of them wish they hadn't, why they spend the rest of their lives trying to reconstruct the innocence they lost, the belief in otherness they can no longer hold, the connection to humanity they can no longer feel. This is Hidden Mind Master, and the reason Neville let most people stay asleep is about to become clear. Welcome back. In part 1, we revealed why Neville stopped explaining reality, why he chose to teach function instead of truth, application instead of implication. We showed you the difference between using the law and seeing through reality. And we showed you what happens when people cross from one to the other. They lose motivation. Connection, the ability to engage with life as if it matters. Because they've seen that it's all consciousness, all imagination, all appearance. And that seeing removes the innocence required to participate fully. Now, in part 2, we examine Neville's later lectures in detail. The moments where you can hear him struggling with how much to reveal, the encoded warnings, the subtle redirections. And we explore what happens to those who cross the threshold anyway, who see what Neville tried to protect them from seeing, and why most of them spend the rest of their lives wishing they could unsee it. This is Hidden Mind Master, and this is the hidden cost of total clarity. Let me show you a specific moment from a 1970 lecture. Neville is discussing the nature of creation. He says, "When you imagine, you are not creating something external to yourself. You are rearranging yourself. You are selecting which version of yourself to experience. There are infinite versions, infinite possibilities, all existing now. And your imagination determines which one becomes vivid, which one becomes lived, which one becomes your reality." He pauses here. The recording captures the silence. It lasts almost 10 seconds. Then he continues, "But do not misunderstand what I am saying. I am not saying you create multiple versions and choose between them. I am saying the versions already exist. You do not create them. You never have. You discover them. You select them. You tune into them, like selecting a radio station. The broadcast is already happening. You are simply choosing which frequency to receive. And when you change frequency, you experience a different broadcast. But you did not create that broadcast. It was always there, always real, always happening. You just were not tuned to it." Now, notice what Neville is doing here. He's explaining manifestation in a way that removes personal agency. He's saying, you are not creating, you are selecting. And selection is not creation. It is choice among what already is. This is a profound shift from his earlier teaching. In the 1940s and 1950s, Neville spoke as if imagination creates, as if you are bringing something into existence that did not exist before. But by 1970, he has refined this. He's now saying everything already exists. You are not creating new realities. You are selecting among existing realities. And this distinction is critical, because if you are creating, you are powerful. You are a god. You are bringing forth the new. But if you are selecting, you are not creating anything. You are simply observing different aspects of what already is. And this removes the thrill, the satisfaction, the sense of accomplishment, because you did not accomplish anything. You just changed what you were looking at, like changing the channel on a television. The shows were always broadcasting. You just selected which one to watch. But Neville does not fully develop this implication. He states it, then moves on. He does not push his students to sit with what this means, does not force them to confront the uncomfortable truth that if all possibilities already exist, then nothing you do creates anything new. You are simply navigating a landscape of pre-existing probabilities. And navigation is not creation, it is exploration. And exploration does not carry the same meaning, the same weight, the same sense of purpose. Neville knows this, and he deliberately does not elaborate, does not drive the point home, because driving it home would destabilize, would remove the motivation to manifest, would make students question, why bother? If I'm not creating, if I'm just selecting, if everything already exists, why does it matter which version I experience? And Neville does not want them asking that question, because that question leads nowhere good. It leads to nihilism, to apathy, to the recognition that all choices are arbitrary, all outcomes equally valid, all experiences equally meaningless, because they are all equally real, equally available, equally dependent on where you place your attention. Here is another moment from a 1971 lecture. Neville is speaking about other people. He says, you meet people, and you believe they are separate from you, that they have their own consciousness, their own inner life, their own reality. And in a sense, they do. But in a deeper sense, they do not. Because consciousness is one, not many. One consciousness appearing is many. And the person you are speaking to is that one consciousness, wearing a different mask, playing a different role, experiencing itself as other, so it can know itself through contrast, through relationship, through the illusion of separation. But it is illusion. Separation is not real. There is only one, and you are it. And so are they, because you and they are the same consciousness, experiencing itself from different perspectives. And when you truly see this, truly feel this, something changes. You no longer experience them as other. You experience them as you. Another version of you. Another expression of the same singular awareness. Again, Neville pauses. You can hear it in the recording. A long pause, as if he is deciding whether to continue, whether to say more, whether to reveal the full implication. Then he says, but I do not tell you this so you will treat people as less real. I tell you this so you will treat them as more real. Because if they are you, if they are consciousness appearing as other, then their suffering is your suffering. Their joy is your joy. What you do to them, you do to yourself. And this should fill you with compassion, with love, with the recognition that there is no one else to hurt, no one else to help, only yourself, in infinite forms, experiencing infinite variations. And your task is not to awaken everyone to this truth. Your task is to love them, to see yourself in them, to treat them as you would treat yourself, not because it is moral, but because it is literal. They are you, and you are them, and there is no distinction that is not imagined. Notice what Neville has done. He has stated the truth, solipsism, the recognition that there is only one consciousness, but immediately reframed it. He has taken something that could be isolating and made it compassionate. He has redirected the implication. Instead of saying, you are alone, everyone else is your imagination, he says, everyone is you, so love them as yourself. This is skillful. This is protective. Because the first framing leads to detachment, to seeing others as less real, as projections, as dream characters. But the second framing leads to connection, to seeing others as extensions of yourself, as equally real because they are you. And Neville deliberately chooses the second framing, not because it is more true, but because it is more functional. It allows his students to hold the recognition of oneness without losing their humanity, without becoming cold, distant, disconnected. And this is Neville's genius. He teaches the truth, but he teaches it in a way that preserves function, that protects relationship, that keeps people engaged with life. But some students heard what Neville was really saying, heard beneath the compassionate framing, heard the implication he was trying to soften, and they could not unhear it. One such student wrote years later, "After that lecture, I went home and could not stop thinking about what Neville said. If everyone is me, if there is only one consciousness, then I am alone, fundamentally alone, not in the sense of being isolated, but in the sense of being the only thing that exists, the only awareness, the only observer. Everyone I love, everyone I speak to, everyone I see, they are all me, forgetting I am me." And this thought was unbearable, because it meant I could never truly connect with anyone, never truly share my experience, because there is no one to share it with. There is only me, experiencing myself through infinite perspectives. And all connection is me connecting with myself. All love is me loving myself. All conversation is me speaking to myself. And this recognition did not make me feel compassionate. It made me feel insane, isolated in a way that has no remedy, because the isolation is not circumstantial. It is ontological. I am alone because I am all. And being all means there is no other. And without other, there is no connection. Only the appearance of connection. Only the illusion of relationship. And I spend every day trying to forget what I saw, trying to believe again in separation, in otherness, in the reality of the people around me, but I cannot. The veil has been lifted, and I see them as they are, appearances in my consciousness, and I am alone. This is what Neville was protecting against. This recognition, this unbearable clarity, this ontological isolation. He knew that some students, if they thought deeply enough about his teaching, would arrive here, would see that oneness implies aloneness, that if there is only one consciousness, then you are that consciousness, and everyone else is you, and there is no escape from that truth, no way to unknow it, no way to reconstruct the innocence of believing in separate others. And Neville could not prevent this, could not protect everyone, but he could minimize the damage by framing the truth compassionately, by redirecting the implication, by teaching function instead of theory. And for most students, this worked. They heard everyone is you and felt love, felt connection, felt compassion. They did not hear you are alone. They did not see the isolation beneath the unity. And this is exactly what Neville intended. He wanted them to feel the unity without seeing the aloneness, to experience the oneness without recognizing the solitude, because the unity is livable. The aloneness is not. Now let me show you what happens when people try to reconstruct innocence after seeing the full truth. It does not work. Once you have seen that you are the only consciousness, that everyone else is your imagination, you cannot go back to believing they are separate, cannot go back to relating to them as independent beings. You can pretend, can act as if, can go through the motions of connection, but beneath the performance, you know they are you. You know their words are your words. Their thoughts are your thoughts. Their entire existence is your consciousness appearing as them. And this knowing creates a permanent distance. A glass wall between you and everyone else. You can see them, can interact with them, can even love them, but you cannot forget what they are, cannot lose yourself in the relationship, cannot experience the spontaneous intimacy that requires believing the other is truly other. And this distance is not something you chose. It is the cost of seeing, the price of clarity, the consequence of understanding too much. Some people, after reaching this recognition, try to return to manifestation, to using the law, to creating their reality, but they find it hollow, empty, meaningless, because they now know they are not creating anything. They are selecting among pre-existing probabilities, tuning into frequencies that were always broadcasting, and this knowledge removes the satisfaction. One person described it this way: I used to love manifesting, loved imagining my desire, loved feeling it real, loved watching the outer world conform. It felt magical, powerful, like I was shaping reality with my mind. But now I know the truth. I am not shaping anything. I am selecting, choosing, tuning in, and the magic is gone. Because selection is not creation. It is just choice. And choice among infinite, equally real possibilities feels arbitrary. Why choose this over that? Why prefer fulfillment over lack? Why care about any outcome when all outcomes already exist and none is more real than any other? I still manifest, but I do it mechanically, without joy, without the thrill I used to feel, because I know what I am doing. And knowing has killed the experience. This is the trap, the paradox. Understanding the mechanism destroys the ability to enjoy using the mechanism. Like learning how a magic trick works. Once you see the method, the illusion is broken, and you can still perform the trick, can still make the coin disappear, can still pull the rabbit from the hat, but it is no longer magical. It is technique. And technique without wonder is just procedure. And procedure is not life. It is the hollow performance of life. And people who reach this stage often report feeling like they are going through motions, playing a role, pretending to care about outcomes they know are arbitrary, pretending to connect with people they know are themselves, pretending to live in a world they know is imagination. And the pretending is exhausting, isolating, soul-crushing, because it never ends. Every moment requires acting as if. And acting as if, when you know the truth, is a form of slow death. Death of spontaneity. Death of innocence. Death of the ability to lose yourself in experience. And what remains is awareness, watching itself, performing for itself, in a play that has no audience, no purpose, no meaning beyond what you arbitrarily assign. Here is what Neville understood. Most people need meaning, need purpose, need to believe their choices matter, that their life matters, that they are here for a reason, and these beliefs require not seeing too clearly, require a certain blindness, a certain innocence, a certain willingness to accept the appearance as real, even if, at some level, you know it is not. And Neville protected this by teaching his students to use imagination without explaining what imagination is, by showing them how to manifest without revealing that manifestation is selection, by encouraging them to love others without forcing them to see that others are themselves. He gave them the tools, but withheld the implications, because the tools empower, and the implications destabilize. And Neville cared more about his students' well-being than about their enlightenment, more about their functionality than their understanding, more about their ability to live richly than their ability to see clearly. And this is why he stopped explaining, stopped revealing, stopped pushing toward total clarity. Because total clarity, for most people, is not liberation. It is devastation. Let me show you Neville's final position. His last lecture series, given in 1972, contains almost no instruction, no technique, no how-to. It is almost entirely storytelling, biblical interpretation, symbolic analysis. He speaks of Christ, of resurrection, of awakening, but he speaks of it mythologically, poetically, not literally, not practically. And when students ask, how do I do this? How do I awaken? How do I become Christ? Neville's answer is always the same. He says, you already are. You do not become what you are. You recognize what you have always been. And that recognition is not something I can give you, not something I can teach you. It comes when it comes. If it comes, and if it does not come in this lifetime, that is fine. You are still living, still experiencing, still exploring consciousness, and that is enough. That is the purpose. Not to awaken, but to experience, to imagine, to create, to love, to connect, to forget you are God so you can remember you are God, to lose yourself so you can find yourself, to fragment into many so you can recognize yourself as one. This is the play. This is the game. This is the dream. And you are dreaming it, and I am you, dreaming that I am teaching you, and you are you, dreaming that you are learning from me, and none of it is separate, and all of it is real, and the only mistake is thinking you need to wake up. You do not need to wake up. You need to dream beautifully, consciously, deliberately, and love what you are dreaming, because it is you. This is Neville's final teaching, not a technique, not a revelation, but permission. Permission to stay in the dream, to enjoy the play, to manifest without needing to understand, to love without needing to see that the beloved is yourself, to live as if the world is real, even if you know it is imagination. Because living as if is not delusion, it is wisdom. It is choosing function over truth, experience over understanding, life over clarity. And Neville, after decades of teaching, after decades of exploring consciousness, after decades of seeing deeper and deeper into the nature of reality, arrived at this conclusion: clarity is overrated. Understanding is overrated. Truth, beyond a certain point, does not serve life. It undermines it. And the deepest wisdom is knowing when to stop seeking, when to stop questioning, when to accept the mystery, when to live in the appearance without demanding to see behind it. Because behind the appearance is not more reality. It is less. It is the recognition that there is only consciousness, only you, only the dreamer. And the dreamer alone is not beautiful. The dream is beautiful. And to experience the dream fully, you must forget you are dreaming, must believe in the characters, must care about the outcomes, must lose yourself in the story. And Neville's final gift was this: he let his students stay lost, stopped trying to wake them, stopped explaining what they would see if they woke, and taught them, instead, to dream well, to dream consciously, to dream lovingly, to dream beautifully, and to never, ever ask too deeply what a dream is. Because that question has no good answer, only the truth. And the truth is lonely. Here is the quiet warning Neville encoded in his silence. The warning he could not say directly, but embedded in his choice to stop explaining. The warning is this: you can use the law, or you can understand the law, but you cannot do both fully. Using requires innocence, requires believing you are creating, requires caring about outcomes, requires feeling that manifestation matters. Understanding removes innocence, reveals you are selecting, not creating, shows that outcomes are arbitrary, demonstrates that nothing ultimately matters because everything is equally real and equally imaginary. And these two positions are incompatible. You can live in one or the other, but not both simultaneously. If you choose to use, you must stop asking how it works, must stop questioning what reality is, must accept the appearance and work within it. If you choose to understand, you must accept the cost, the loss of motivation, the loss of connection, the loss of meaning, the loss of the ability to engage with life as if it is not a dream. And most people, if given this choice clearly, would choose to use, would choose function over truth, would choose experience over understanding, would choose the dream over the recognition that they are the dreamer. And Neville knew this, knew that given a clear choice, his students would choose to stay asleep, would choose to manifest, to create, to love, to connect, to live as if reality is solid and other people are real and their choices matter. And so he made the choice for them by stopping the explanation, by withholding the final implication, by teaching application and hiding truth. He protected them from the clarity that would have destroyed their ability to live fully, from the understanding that would have isolated them ontologically, from the recognition that would have made every relationship feel hollow, every achievement feel meaningless, every moment feel like performance in a play with no audience. He bore that recognition himself, carried it alone, so his students could remain in the dream, connected, engaged, alive. And that is love. Not the sentimental kind, but the kind that sacrifices truth for well-being, that chooses silence over revelation, that lets people stay asleep because sleep, for most, is kinder than waking. This is why Neville Goddard stopped explaining reality, not because he did not know, but because he knew too much. Knew what explanation would cost, knew what clarity would destroy, knew that most people are not served by seeing what lies beneath the appearance. And so he taught the appearance, taught how to reshape it, how to navigate it, how to enjoy it. And he left the depths unexplored, the implications unstated, the final truth unspoken. And his students manifested, loved, connected, lived, without ever knowing what they were protected from, without ever seeing the ontological isolation that Neville saw, without ever recognizing that they are the only consciousness, the only dreamer, the only thing that is real. And they were better off, happier, more functional, more human. And Neville, watching them thrive in their innocence, made peace with his decision, made peace with carrying the truth alone, made peace with being the teacher who knew but did not tell, who saw but did not show, who understood but did not explain, because explanation beyond a certain point is not teaching, it is destruction. And Neville loved his students too much to destroy them. This is Hidden Mind Master, where we examine what was left unsaid, what was deliberately withheld, what was protected by silence. You now know why Neville stopped explaining, why he let most people stay asleep, why he taught function and hid truth. Not because he lacked knowledge, but because he had too much. And he knew that knowledge, beyond a certain threshold, does not liberate. It exiles, removes you from the human experience, makes you a witness instead of a participant. And witnessing, for most people, is not worth the price, is not worth losing connection, meaning, the ability to care, the ability to love, the ability to believe that anything matters. And so Neville, in his final years, became a guardian, not of secrets, but of innocence. He guarded his students' ability to dream, to manifest, to live as if, and he did this by stopping, by refusing to explain further, by leaving the final implication veiled. And that veil was not ignorance. It was compassion. It was wisdom. It was the recognition that some truths do not awaken. They exile. And exile is not enlightenment. It is loneliness wearing the mask of understanding. And Neville refused to inflict that loneliness on those he taught. So he let them sleep, and in sleeping, they lived, fully, richly, humanly. And that was enough. That was everything. That was the point, not to wake them, but to let them dream well. And in that choice, Neville revealed his deepest teaching. Not how to manifest, but when to stop seeking, when to stop questioning, when to accept the mystery and live within it. Because the mystery is not a problem to solve. It is a gift to receive. And receiving it requires not demanding to see behind it, not insisting on total clarity, not pushing past the threshold where understanding becomes isolation. Stay here, in the dream, in the appearance, in the beautiful, terrible, magnificent illusion of separation and otherness and meaning. Use your imagination. Create your reality. Love as if others are real. Live as if your choices matter. And never, ever ask too deeply what is behind the curtain. Because what is behind the curtain is you, alone. And you are better off not knowing.